What's up, everybody? It's your boy Rick, and we're checking out today the Millionaire Move Show, and we're talking about Spence versus Crawford 2. In the first fight, I'm going to run the video on the side here if they let me play it. So you could see, as we all know, in the first fight, Spence was dominated. It was a shocking upset because it was so one-sided. It was a one-sided fight where nobody... let's watch this real quick. Okay, it was a one-sided fight. I'm going to let this play because I'm not sure if it's going to get flagged or whatever, even though it's fair use. Because I'm commentating on it, and we're discussing this. So, yeah, it was a remarkable fight for so many reasons because of the obvious skill set difference between the two. Now, okay, we know Spence had a lot of trouble. He had accidents and he had issues going into this fight because he was hospitalized. He could have passed away. He was in especially one of those accidents. If you look at the car, I think it was a Ferrari or something. It was really bad. But he was undefeated going into this fight, and he looked great by all accounts. In his prior fights, he was never dropped, to my knowledge. I don't remember him being put down legitimately. And the way that Crawford dominated this entire fight was stunning. You start to go back in boxing history and look at huge upsets. If you go back in your boxing, if you got that, you're just a fan and you just study boxing and you watch it and you know what I'm talking about, you'll have to go back to I'm thinking Roy Jones versus it was billed as a super fight versus James Toney, where it was so one-sided. It was just he made it look easy. He took a guy who's a great fighter. There's no doubt about it. I mean, look at those shots. Speed. He was such a good fighter. I'm talking about Spence. Nobody can just write him off and say, "Oh, okay, he was not all that anyway. He was just kind of hyped up." So now the breaking news is Leonard Ellaby supports Errol Spence wanting Crawford rematch at 154. Leonard Ellaby is talking about. He's from Mayweather Promotions. He was Floyd's guy. Helped Floyd have a illustrious career, made a lot of right business moves for him. But anyway, he's back in this. He says he backs Errol Spence Jr.'s preference to have the rematch with Terrence Crawford at 154. I'm reading from Boxing News 24. Give him a plug. At rather than 147, where they made the fight last time, to make it easier for him to make weight. Ellaby feels that having the rematch at 154 would make a difference between its 7 pounds, and Spence will be more comfortable at the weight of than the weight he was at 147. Leonard is saying that Spence didn't have to fight Crawford and gave him that opportunity. He wanted to do it for the fans. You know how things change all of a sudden because the guy gets beat. Oh, he didn't have to give him that. In my opinion, with boxing, the best should fight the best. They should have fought a long time ago. That shouldn't even be a question. He didn't have to.
Damn,
no,
that's cool.
So let's get to the next one.
He did, and he should have did it earlier. They should have fought.
And yeah, he had to for the fans and for the sake of boxing. So ideally, he's saying Crawford should give Spence the rematch at 154 rather than looking to gain an advantage by making him come down to 147 to increase the chances of victory. Now, let me just talk some real talk based on what I watched, what we all are seeing here on screen. If it's running, should have it running. Let's be honest about this. When you watch this fight, A-side Crawford all the way. There's going to be some people that jump on and say, well, he can win a rematch. It's been done before. But throughout boxing history, if you look at elite fighters having a rematch, most of the time, not always, most of the time, the person who won the fight previously wins it again. Especially with the damage that Spence took in this fight. I think this type of damage is really bad. It just doesn't look good. I just want to skim through this article here Crawford hasn't spoken up to say that the rematch with Spence must be at 147. Perhaps the person who is doing the talking for him is his team voicing his own preference rather than it coming from Terrence. So maybe it's all speculation and all theory. I think is not going to be a difference. In fact, I argue this. It's going to be worse in the rematch at a higher weight. Not only because he took a shellacking in the first fight and he's damaged, it's because of the speed. I think Crawford can weigh in at 154, and I think that he's going to still put on another hellacious beating. And dare I say, it's going to end earlier. I don't think Spence, and I get it, it's about money and legacy. But, he's not, as far as we know, that's a whole nother video, how athletes go broke, how they don't invest their money, how they spend money just recklessly. How you see some athletes just, I remember some HBO documentary. I'm not into football, so I don't know the names, but some football player had a house, had bought the house, but he's with a wife and kid or young kids, and he was scrounging up change on a table to go somewhere, to the store. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was crazy. But Spence, in the first fight, Spence tipping the scales at 147 and Crawford coming in at 146.75. And that made it official from what I'm reading here. But I think that Spence, I get it, to secure that big money, because if he does have a tune-up fight, let's say he has a tune-up fight and he loses, that's a problem. That's a huge problem, because if and I think the money would be there still, but not as big. He'll get a lot less money to fight Crawford in a rematch if he does lose, in between like having that tune-up. But for health reasons, for psychology reasons, because it's psychological, a sport like this. All sports are, right? A lot of things in life are psychological. If you're going to do a job interview tomorrow morning, it's psychological. You might start doubting yourself, or you might start pumping yourself up. You might have questions. There's a lot of things going on. The human mind is very complicated, so that plays a huge role and a huge factor in boxing, of course. So what I'm trying to say is the speed difference here, and you can see it. Let me just continue here so I can see myself. The speed is such a big factor here. The way you could see the shock. I want to say Spence has such a poker face. You really don't see the emotions really much with him, which could be a really big asset with a fighter like him. He's calm. I really like Spence. I hate to see, as a fan, I hate to see someone who I really think highly of in the ring get beat up like that. I don't know. Maybe it's just a me thing. I'm kind of invested in my fighters when I like a fighter and I'm a fan of a fighter. Like tomorrow, if Spence fought someone, or Crawford, and then all of a sudden he's taken a lot of abuse, I'd like to see the fight stopped. I don't like to see that, because I'm caught up with these guys. I really like them. I'm a fan of both of these men. I think they're really good guys, and they're both great ambassadors for boxing. They're great for the sport. They're great for what they do. They're great the way they talk about their family. They're just really cool dudes. But for real talk, I think that the speed, the way you could see Spence loading up, the way he's loading up, it's not a good look. I really believe that it's going to be a lot faster. This took 9 rounds to break this man down mentally, to break him down physically. A guy that was just so ready at 33 years old, in top-notch shape, and the older fighter at 35 did this to him. The skill set was bigger. The way he switches on a dime. This proves, I had my doubts before, I'm not going to lie, about Crawford, because the way these promotions go now, whereas back in the days you'd have the best fight and the best. Even before, like, we were all born. Boxing has become so protected now. You'll have one promoter. Back in the day, it was like, let's go to the 80s. Don King surfaced. Don King would have, these fights on Showtime in the early 90s, late 80s. Struck a deal with Showtime and Don King Promotions. But you would see crossover fights. Now it's like you have PBC guy and you have like Showtime. You have a top rank guy, and they have a winning guy. They have a young champion, and they don't want to put him up against another young undefeated champion. They want to build their names, get them up to the point where, okay, let's cash out. We've seen it with Floyd. It's just a phenomenon that's happening in boxing for the last over now a little bit over a decade. That sucks. It stinks. It stinks. I don't know if you know this is happening. Some people probably are used to it, but it's a real thing where it's rare to get Spence and Crawford in their 20s. I'm using them as an example, obviously. Two undefeated guys that capture titles, and then they don't fight. They're fighting on other channels. They're fighting on other platforms, and they're not fighting each other until they're in their 30s, 35, middle age hitting, or just about to go there. They're over 30, and they get made all their millions. I hate it because it's just not. I wish it was more like the UFC, where you have one title. I don't even know. I haven't watched the UFC in a while. Did they manage to work another title in there? You have one title, one champion. How is this acceptable, by the way? Can I just throw this in there? Is a boxing fan accepting this nonsense of a WBC, a WBA? They're all making money. It's all about money. This title or that title. Back in the day, WBO wasn't even a thing. It was like, oh, you have a cheap title. A WBO was like a stepping stone title. Now it's like a real thing. Like, how common sense? How do you have more than one champion in the ring? How do you have multiple titles? Back in the day, it wasn't like that in the 50s. How do you have more than one title? More than one title. How do you have 3, 4 titles? There should be only one title per weight class. End of discussion. So now this is being used as a stepping stone and springboard, and it's being manipulated. It's just so deep as a money-making opportunity where you have 2 champions, 3 champions, you have the sanctioning bodies, fees, this and that, making the fighter pay up. It should be only one title. I'm not accepting this. That's why I stopped paying for pay-per-views a long time ago when I stopped posting here. I got so ticked off at this mess. So anyway, that's another story. So I'm going to say that Spence really seriously needs a tune-up fight. I'm talking about if you're coming in for a health reason type of situation, just letting his body heal, take some time off. If you're gonna have that rematch, if he could do it, I don't know what the rematch clause states. Does it say he has to fight immediately? Will Crawford shake on it like, hey, do your thing? Because they seem really to like each other. They seem really genuine when there was no animosity between these two. So maybe Crawford would be like, do your thing. Go have your rematch. But if you lose, you're going to get a lot less money. Let's just say he's going to get like $2 million to fight Crawford in a rematch. Well, if you lose, you're going to get only $750,000 plus whatever, all these other things, pay-per-view buys, etc. So and then the money, the A side, Crawford's going to get a lot more money. So there's so many variables with that situation, but the human body, the brain isn't designed obviously for taking punishment like this. So I think he needs a rest period. I think that if he goes into another rematch this year, or even in early, he gives some rest time, early 2024, I'm going to say this is going to be a lot quicker than 9 rounds. Could be wrong, been wrong before, but for the most part, I call things on the money. I've made some good predictions back in the days. I've out-predicted top boxing experts. I would listen to what they said, and then I'd come with my predictions consistently. Heck, I got some posters sitting in the corner here and some gear. I won from Showtime. Or sorry, I didn't get... I won a Floyd Mayweather Madonna poster. I won some other stuff. I don't remember. I won a shirt for my predictions, something else. They had contests back in the days, and I was winning. Going on, I think I even showed it on his channel, 15, 14 fights, win streaks of predictions, and it weren't always obvious A and B fighters, high scenarios where you see a Crawford go in there fighting some older guy, some unknown person, or someone in Europe, just random fighter where he's going to win. There was a lot of tough picks in there that I got right. So I do consider myself a boxing expert. I do, because it's the only sport I watch. Occasionally I'll watch, if I'm in Europe or something, when in Rome, as they say, I'll watch some football. They call it over there soccer. Once in a while, MMA, I'll watch it. Less nowadays. I just really watch boxing. I really enjoy it. It's the only sport I ever watched, and it's the only sport I really, really understand. So I'm going to talk about the rematch, some more things. I think that Spence is looping shots and Crawford's speed, and the way they're just built, the way they're just wired, the way they're matched. Every fighter has, if eventually they'll find the person that's going to beat them. There's like someone out there, not every, but almost, some guys will give problems because of Floyd Mayweather. And I think Crawford's like a Floyd Mayweather, by the way. It's this very rare few elite fighters where there's someone at that time, in that era, like a Floyd Mayweather that could beat them. Floyd Mayweather said, what was his name? The Drunken Style. You remember him, right? Emmanuel Augustus was like one of his hardest fights, but he still beat him. He had that fight with Corrales, Diego Corrales. No, he beat Corrales. The other guy, Castillo. Arguably, he had the most problems with, I think it was Castillo, if I'm not mistaken, doing this off the head. But he still won. Officially, he won. Whether you think that was a close fight or not, it was kind of close. Floyd Mayweather got considerably better after that fight. And he's just one of a kind, like Crawford, a one of a kind fighter. The idea that there's a fighter in a certain era, and it goes back where they're undefeated and nobody could beat them. But eventually, if they stick around too long, they will get beat. If Crawford sticks around till he's 37, he's going to get beat. If he sticks around 37, 38, because he's going to slow up and lose a step. I think we've seen the best of Crawford here. I think this was it. And he should definitely go for the rematch, secure his legacy. He already has the legacy, but get another gold feather on his king's crown, or whatever you want to call it. Game of Thrones. Sit on another throne in another city, you know? This guy is like really the best of the best of the best in this era. Floyd Mayweather, he was the best. I don't care if you don't like him. A lot of people say Floyd Mayweather cherry-picked. He did this. All of that somewhat may be true at times. But at the end of the day, Floyd Mayweather did fight who he was supposed to fight, and he won every match. Nobody can take that away from him. He was just had the perfect style. So seeing Terrence Crawford, the way the way Spence was hitting him on the ropes, the way he was going for it, and the way he just got beat was telling. Talent told the truth. He not only won the fight, Crawford, he won it so badly, a lot of people like myself are like, why is there a rematch? For me, there's no desire to see a rematch, because I'm going to see a guy I like a lot get beaten, and perhaps even worse this time and faster. Now, this fight went 9 rounds. It was very damaging. It would have been better had he knocked him out early, of course, because over those 9 rounds, Spence took a brutal beating, a beating that is going to stay with him for the rest of his life, and it's going to affect him in the ring if he's in there again, and it's just not a good thing. He has enough money, and if he fights Crawford again, which it looks like is going to happen, hey, I hope he gets a long rest in between, and I hope something changes, and I hope that he can defend himself better, because this fight was crazy. This was crazy. I'm not going to discredit Crawford by saying, oh, it was an accident that caused this. I don't see any evidence of that. I don't. I looked at Spence's fight before. Yeah, maybe he's not just mowing everyone down 1, 2, 3, but I don't see any evidence of that. But, you know, you could say it, you could believe it, but we don't know. Who knows? I don't got his medical records. I don't know. Did the doctor tell him, hey, you got severe problems, you shouldn't be fighting again, let's keep that on the down low? You know, I don't know. I just think that's it. What the crazy thing is, Spence had such a heart of a lion that you could see here. When they're stopping the fight, he wants to keep going. There's no quitting this man. Psychologically, he just never gave up. He thought he was going to win his fight to the very end until the ref stopped it, even though he was going down. You know? So it's just a really, really, really interesting fight scenario of the second match, the rematch, because there's going to be a lot of people selling that idea that, hey, it's going to be different this time, because they're going to be one, maybe possibly, if that does happen, it's going to be a higher weight class, better for Spence. He's the bigger guy. He's going to carry that weight better. Well, did you ever think he might be a hell of a lot slower at 154, where Crawford gains a little something, makes the weight? I mean, it's gonna be a really bad beatdown from where I'm coming from, what I'm seeing and thinking about. So with that being said, I just look at the I don't want to see anybody really hurt seriously like that. I think Spence had a wonderful career. He's got one little loss, big deal. He got a loss. Whoa, he's always going to be a champion no matter what happens. He's always going to be in the Boxing Hall of Fame, and we'll see what happens. Leonard Ellerby, he's a businessman. So based on this article, what I'm reading, he's saying that it will increase his chances to win. If he's behind that idea, he's going to promote that idea, and he's going to stick with his thoughts on that. Hey, this is going to be really good. And if you're selling this fight, if you're a promoter, you're going to be like, hey, the weight, that was a thing. Maybe he was weight trained. Maybe this, maybe that. There's a lot of ways to sell this fight as attractive. Like, oh, Spence has a chance, but he does because he's a good fighter. But if you look at the blueprint here, if you look at the first fight, it's really hard to pick out spots where you can see if you really have a high boxing IQ and you really know the sport. Is a really hard thing to see how Spence could win a rematch. The only way I think it would be an age thing if they waited 2 years and Spence fought a bunch of easy fights, because Spence is 2 years younger, but is that 2 years much of a difference? I don't know. Not really. So, it's really, I have to do a lot of mental gymnastics to see Spence winning, to argue on his behalf. Like if I was a lawyer and I'm arguing, I'm the defense, and I'm arguing for Spence to win this fight, this rematch. It's a lot. I gotta dig in a lot of bags. I gotta pull out a lot of excuses. I don't see it happening. So the verdict is in here. My verdict is Spence is gonna lose again, and it's gonna be faster. It's gonna be a knockout. It's gonna be ugly, and perhaps his corner has mercy and they stop it quicker. That's all I'm saying. Crawford's on another level, man. He's just got skills like that. He's nice. He's like a Floyd Mayweather type level elite. This fight proved it. It's like nobody at this very moment, when Crawford's in that ring that night, in that division, can beat Crawford. And nobody. I don't care who you put up against him. And that's it. There's nothing else to prove. And with that, I'm going to be out. We'll see what happens. And I hope you have a great day, great night, whatever. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with another one soon. I'm out.